So this is the captain's dream log. Stardate 1/9/2018. I dreamt last night that I was I was on a movie set, and it was also like an opera set too, now that I think about it. There were a lot of different pieces to the set, and it was the way it was put together, no one could agree on what time period to do. So there were people running around in the wrong costumes, and there were like totally different sets. So there would be like a London set, there like think Mary Poppins or something like that. And then there would be a Western set, and then there'd be an opera set, and like everyone was running around saying, no, change the scene. And there were lots of men running around in dresses. So there were like just these confused men, like that they almost looked like the French era men with like the powdered faces and, that kind of stuff. And running around, just total chaos and confusion. And then there were people who were just trying to kind of like sort of follow a storyline and live a normal life. And I was one of those people, and I was like, why is everything so chaotic? And then there was, I had four friends, and they were all older, but they were pretending that they were young. So there was like, there was an older guy. He was probably, I don't know, he seemed like he was in his maybe late 40s, early 50s, and he was like, and I'm only 24. And I looked at him and I thought, that's just not true. So anyway, these four friends, they were all different ethnicities, and I can't really remember what each of the ethnicities was, but I do remember that one of my main friends, he was like a Mexican or Spanish guy, and we were all short on money, and I wasn't worried about it for myself, but I was worried about it for everybody else. And so these friends that I had, they were kind of, I don't really know why I was hanging out with them. They were like kind of, like drinkers, partiers, blah blah blah, kind of the, if you watch like a pub scene from an old movie, they were those kinds of people. And they weren't really doing anything, and it was like I was always trying to get them to do something. And they were all poverty stricken, though. Everyone was poverty stricken. And they were at one point they all said, oh, I just need, each of these friends said, I just need $500. I just need $500. And the Mexican friend or Spanish friend, I don't know what he was, he called me over one time, and we were at the base of these stairs where we would always meet. So we would always meet at these stairs. And he said, come here, mija, come here. And I always said, well, what is it? And he pulled out from this big sheet, this wad of $500. And I was like, oh, And he said, I don't know what to spend it on, And, should I save it? And I said, well, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, as though in the dream, they could hear us. I don't know if they actually could or not, but each of the friends, it was like, because it was a movie in the dream, it was like I was a part of the movie, but then I was also living the movie. It was weird. So each of my friends like popped over this stone wall, and one of them said, oh, if only I had $500 to, I don't know, it was random stuff like buy furniture, and then another person said something else, and another person said something else, and each time they went down the line, like it got more serious about who needed the cash, because like one of them was for food, one of them was for something else, and then I was hesitant, and I was like, well, we could give each of them $100, but that's not going to help anything. We could give one $200 and another $200, and give the other one $100. We could give $500 to one person. I don't know. And the Mexican guy was very, very hesitant about giving away the money. And I said, well, let's just think about this for a while. And each of the friends were like, oh, okay, and really wanting the money. And then I was walking one of my other friends. I don't remember whether she was in this group of friends that I was hanging out with or not, but she was an older lady. All these people were older, and it was weird because their bodies were, I can't tell in my dream whether it was they were actually old or their souls were old. I can't tell, like whether they were, young, like actually young, but they were so decrepit in their mind and soul that they were old. I couldn't figure that out. So we were walking, I was walking one of my friends, and she had a limp, so we had to go really slowly, and we were going through these, we went through this tunnel, and you know how in New York or big cities, they'll have these water tunnels to let the flood water through, but during the summer they're bone dry. So it was one of those tunnels, and it was really hot in the tunnel, just ungodly hot, and there had been a parade or something that had gone through, and there was one of my friends, I think her name was Betty. I don't know this person in real life at all, but I walked up to her, and she was my favorite friend. She was my favorite. I walked up to her, and she was holding a sign. I couldn't read the sign, but she was protesting against something, and she had a red shirt on, and I just knew in the story that it was like some kind of communist thing. But I loved her. I didn't agree with her politics, and it was like I was keeping that quiet, but I loved her as a friend. And so but it was really weird, because I would look at her one moment and she would be a white woman with white hair, and then I'd look at her the next minute and she was a black woman with black hair, but she always spoke with a black drawl, or like a southern drawl. And so, but she was really hot, and she was not doing very well physically. Like, she was, she had some kind of a sickness going on, and I knew that. And I was like, and she was the last person there at this rally or whatever it was. And I just was like, oh, she's, so stalwart, she's gonna hold out to the end. And so she, or I said, Betty, are you doing okay? And she just replied, oh, she had this really sweet voice, and she said, oh, it's so hot in here. And I said, well, Betty, why don't you go outside and just get a bit of fresh air? And she's like, oh, okay. So she went outside, and she was wearing this red t-shirt, red sweater thing, and I had her take it off because it was just so hot. And then we were walking up to her home, and I was like, oh, Betty, you can just leave, and it's okay, we'll just take you home. She's like, okay. And so then we walked out of the tunnel and into the light, and there were the place where these two ladies lived, because they lived really close to each other, was this apartment complex, and there was cobblestone everywhere, and it was all worn down, like nothing had been patched up, kind of like if you see like Russia during like the Soviet Union time, where everything was just kind of dilapidated, because nobody was repairing anything. It was like that. So everything was dilapidated, and then there was this train that was on a trestle, or whatever you call it, like one of those train bridge things, and it was running right next to the apartment complex, and it would shake, and the train, when it would go by, it would shake and rattle the streets, and then like bits of building would fall down, and nothing ever got fixed. And there was this chimney, like this old unused chimney, that was really close to Betty's house, and it was like all charred on the inside, and parts of the top of it were falling off. And there was this little bronze railing to keep people from going like further onto to keep them from falling down the chimney, basically. But it was so thin and frail that it's not going to do anything. So I said, Betty, why don't you go upstairs and get changed or whatever, and then we can talk about whatever she wanted to talk about. And she's like, oh, all right. And so I was with my other friend, and I was in my own world. Like, she was rattling on about something, probably about how she needed the money, and all I could think about was, I really want to give Betty the money, because Betty's my favorite friend, and Betty could really use it, because she's like actually sick and dying probably. And I was like, yeah, to my other friend. And then Betty comes down, and she was black this time. She was she just had a really cute little black afro. She was wearing this nightgown that was like an old nightgown, like made out of tulle. And I can't be sure whether she had a cigarette in her hand or not. I don't know. I can't, like, that's a detail that's foggy to me now. But she came down, and she had a letter in her hand, and she sat on the chimney where the little railing was. She kind of like put herself behind the railing. I thought that was dangerous, but I didn't say anything, because it just seemed like a typical thing for her to be doing. So I said, oh, Betty, who's the letter from? She's like, I don't know. And so she opens up the letter, and she starts reading it, and then her face just drops, and she's like, I knew at that point that there in the letter there was something about either her having to die or another person dying. And I knew Betty. I knew that she would pick that she would be the one to die and not the other person. And so I said, Betty, what is it? And she just looked at me and she said, I have to die. And I was like, what? And then she just let herself fall backwards through this chimney. And we both, me and my other friend, we reached out to grab her, and she just fell into this darkness. And I wept and sobbed in my dream. Like I cry fairly frequently, but I mean, this was like, you know, the guttural, like funeral tears, you know, and I was like crawling on the ground, just like, oh, you know, and as I was waking up, all I could think about was the fact that, like, some, you know, I was like, this is really bad. This is really bad. And then when I woke up, I told the dream to my mom, and I was like, what do you think this means? You know, and so she was thinking that the chaos going around in the dream was everybody. Kind of the political state of the world and like the social state of the world, socioeconomic state of the world. There's just so much confusing, and there's not a lot of good men around, you know, so there's a lot of confusion there. Not a lot of good leadership going on. And then there was when I knew in the dream, you know, Betty wearing a red shirt was like a communist thing, and it definitely seemed like we were in a kind of a communist country. And my mom was saying, well, maybe the money is kind of like you having to be prepared to help other people, which is something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be able to be one of those people that, you know, just, you know, can help other people with money or food or whatever. And then kind of like a, you know, a safe house type person. And then there was, what else? Oh, the black and white. My mom pointed this out to me. She said, maybe that's because of the American paradigm of black and white. And that paradigm is going to have to fall. And also, I mean, it could also mean the country falling. I hope it doesn't. But it was just really, it was a very interesting dream. So, very vivid. Generally, when I have a dream, they're very, very vivid. They typically mean something. And it was just, it felt like a very important dream. So I don't know whether, you know, like I'll see it within, you know, the next couple of years or whatever. But I mean, I don't live by my dreams. I think that dreams are just your subconscious and sometimes the, you know, universal story being told to you in your dream. Like if you pay attention to the universal story, it does start to reveal itself to you. Most people are just asleep doing, you know, God knows what. But if you start waking up and you pay attention, there's so much going on. You're like, oh my gosh. But then if you try to tell people, they're like, you're a crazy person. And, you know, for me, I'm like, well, I know I'm a crazy person, but I am also a crazy person who can see some stuff. So, you know. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I will continue to log my dreams just because, first of all, I get great story material from them sometimes. And you're like, wow, it's fascinating. I'd like to watch a movie about that.